everybody, to another episode of Metal Mastermind. I am your host, Ken Candelas, and today we have a very special guest. His name is Alex Nasla from Spectre Media Group. Alex, welcome. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. You know, it's morning for me, evening or a new afternoon for you.
Yep.
Hopefully, you said you do these a little earlier, so hopefully I don't mess up your schedule too bad.
No worries. That's totally fine. Alex, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yes.
We actually met each other at Audio Engineering Society in New York City at the Jacob Javits Center.
Yes, my first time and apparently my last time.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes with the AES conventions, man. Definitely the Jacob Javits Centers has proven itself to be quite a challenge for the association. So I guess we'll see how that pans out. But I know that next year it's actually going to take place in California, where you live, right?
It is. It's actually like 40 minutes away from me, which is great.
Oh, wow.
Which is about the same
amazing.
as NAMM. NAMM is also about 40 minutes away from me. So
wow, what a party!
I approve.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
That's great.
They should just do them all in Southern California.
Well, you know, California is such a hotspot for music. I think it does make quite a lot of sense.
I'm sure somebody has the numbers out there and did the research, but I would have to imagine it's the number one place in the world.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
I mean, between Hollywood,
so many labels.
TV, like all the major labels. Yeah, I would have to imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Alex, you've been in metal, the industry of metal, for a very long time.
Yes.
I want to sort of ask a little bit about, yourself. I know that when I met you, it was actually through a mutual friend. It was Glenn Fricker.
Yes.
We had a night out. It was a good time. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And
by accidentally running it into you. It was great.
Yeah. That was kind of hilarious. For those of you guys who are watching the show, the way how that happened was actually I was walking out of Power Station from one of those just, audio demos during the convention, and right down the block on the streets of New York, here comes Alex and Glenn walking to Valhalla. And I'm just like, what in the world?
Yeah. You're like, hey.
That was really funny.
And you're like, oh, okay. I don't know if you had anything else going on, but I apologize to those people whose plans I've ruined. I'm sorry, but also not really sorry.
That is quite the definition of going with the flow.
Yeah.
So, but Alex, your history in metal, let's talk a little bit about where your journey started. I'm curious as to, you are an audio engineer, but you're also a musician.
I have a lot of hats.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the beginnings of Alex Nasla.
Okay. So this is usually a surprising thing for people to hear, but I actually did not get interested in music or playing music, I should say, until later in my life. So it was after I graduated high school. I was 18, and I was like, I'm gonna pick up an instrument. And I went with, at the time, keyboards, piano, because everybody I knew was a guitar player, and I just was like, what? I mean, everybody I know is a guitar player. Am I really just gonna be another guitar player? Keyboards are cool, and at the time I was really into Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater.
Oh, sure.
And a bunch of other Jens Johansson from Stradivarius and Previously Yngwie and
Nice.
Derek Shrinian, just a lot of those super virtuoso keyboard players. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna learn this keyboard. I'm gonna be a keyboard player, and it worked out pretty well because I generally I've always been very production. I've always loved production, even before I was a musician. I guess I didn't realize it at the time that I had an ear for production. It's almost like when you hear Rick Rubin talk about how he has no technical ability but he can hear. I'm not saying I'm like Rick Rubin, but it's similar thing where even though he didn't really understand the technical side of things back then, he somehow had an ear for it.
Intuition.
Yes. And when you're a keyboard player, there are certain things that kind of like make it easier to jump onto being like an engineer and a producer. Like one of the first keyboards I had was a workstation keyboard, which has a simple audio and MIDI sequencer on it. You can record, multi-track, basic mixing. So that's how I started out, like recording my own stuff, and then eventually like other people's. Like literally, I had a Roland Phantom X, and I would literally just record. Like, I still have my demos from that thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that kind of like got me interested in going on the production side of things because I already kind of dipped my toes in it. And yeah, my first few bands, as you might imagine, nothing to write home about. I was I practiced like crazy when I decided to be a musician. Like I finished high school, and I spent an entire year doing nothing but practicing. Self-taught. I mean self-taught in that I brought a bunch of books and taught them to myself of how to play. And I spent like I mean I remember at the time I was like driving my family insane because I was spending 10, 12, 14 hours a day doing nothing but practicing. And I would be playing the same thing over and over again because I sucked and I needed to I basically had to like, commit it to muscle memory in order to like play it halfway decent. And even then it wasn't that great, but I just started playing an instrument for the first time. So
yeah. Well, I mean, at least with keyboards, you have the ability to plug in a headphone jack, unless this was on piano.
This was on Well, I had both a keyboard. No, it was on keyboard. Why you know what? I didn't. I could have done it on headphones, but I didn't.
Oh my gosh! So you were just a rebel.
Yeah, yeah. And it was loud too. I'll be honest.
That's hilarious.
I don't play like that loud anymore. But I don't know. Maybe I was like young and angsty for some reason. But so yeah, I spent an entire year, almost every day, like 12 hours a day, doing nothing but practicing and teaching myself. And obviously that helped me like maybe get further along in ability than maybe like the average person picking up an instrument. But yeah, I was like at a certain point after a year, I was like, all right, maybe I should start playing with people. So started playing with some people. My brother plays guitar, so I play with him at first. Me and him would jam. And then from there, I joined my first band, and it was a learning experience because it was my first time actually playing with a full band, like to a click track and like being on time with everybody. And it took a while to get used to because I just had been practicing so long on my own. That first band didn't go anywhere at all, but it did. The people in it definitely helped me become a better musician. And my band after that also didn't end up going anywhere, but it was the band that I probably like learned the most from in terms of all the mistakes. Like we made all the mistakes. Ego was involved, like, and we didn't even realize we had egos,
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Yeah, and it's not, I'm not saying I wasn't part of the problem. I mean, I definitely was part of the problem. It was me and my buddy Devin. We were kind of like the heads of the band, and sometimes a lot of the times actually, I would say we agreed. Near the end, we disagreed more and more. We were both wrong, it turns out. So that's fun. And Devin's still to this day one of my best friends. But that band did strain our relationship for a bit, and I didn't even realize it.
Well, that is a really important aspect that you're talking about, which is like learning from your mistakes. I mean, as you're growing, even as a musician, of course, I mean, like even the idea of like just playing with other people, there's an entire aspect of just learning how to commingle, be able to also like read people in the moment when you're jamming. Like there's a skill that comes from that. And then, of course, all the interplay of the dynamics of the band moving forward, trying to get gigs, operating yourself, hopefully
Yeah.
more in the eyes of a business, but everybody's still figuring it out. So those are so important years.
That's the biggest thing all my previous bands that we just had no clue, didn't take into account, is like treating it as a business.